A day before my honeymoon, my husband went on a family trip with my father-in-law. When he came back acting distant and said, "I think you should move on," I smiled and handed him the evidence I uncovered, revealing the truth behind their trip. The day before our honeymoon should have been filled with excitement, but instead it shattered my heart into a million pieces. As I stood in the kitchen, packing the last of our bags, my husband, Jake, walked in with a look I had never seen before. One that sent a chill down my spine. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice steady but distant. My stomach dropped. I had expected him to share in my enthusiasm, to revel in the anticipation of our new adventure together. Instead, he dropped a bombshell. "I went on a family trip with my dad. I think you should move on." Confusion washed over me, mingling with a deep sense of betrayal. How could he say that? Just hours before, we had been laughing together, planning our future. Now he stood there, a stranger cloaked in the guise of my husband, suggesting I let go of everything we had built. My heart raced as I fought to process his words. What had happened during that trip? But I wasn't just going to stand there, paralyzed by shock. I had uncovered something, evidence that would reveal the truth behind their trip. As I smiled, a mix of anger and determination surged within me. I knew I had to confront him, to show him that I wouldn't be easily dismissed. The truth was waiting to be unveiled, and I was ready to fight for my marriage. I'm Sarah, a passionate and optimistic woman who believes in the power of love and family. My friends often describe me as nurturing, always putting others before myself. I had always envisioned a life filled with laughter, shared dreams, and unwavering support. My relationship with Jake, my husband of 2 years, embodied that vision. He was kind, hardworking, and had a smile that could light up the darkest days. We had met in college, and our connection felt effortless, as if we were two pieces of a puzzle that fit perfectly together. However, there was one person who often cast a shadow over our happiness, my father-in-law, Tom. He was a charismatic man, but his overbearing nature often left me feeling uneasy. Jake had always been close to his dad, and while I appreciated their bond, I sometimes felt like an outsider in their relationship. Tom's opinions often influenced Jake's decisions, creating an unspoken tension that lingered beneath the surface. As we planned our honeymoon, excitement bubbled within me. We had chosen a beautiful beach destination, a place where we could unwind and reconnect. I envisioned long walks on the shore, candlelit dinners, and the promise of a future filled with love. But just days before our departure, Tom had suggested a family trip with Jake, claiming it was a chance for them to bond before the wedding. I had brushed it off, thinking it was harmless. Little did I know, this trip would change everything. Family drama can test even the strongest relationships, and our stories reflect the complexities of love and loyalty. Subscribe to Reddit Family Sagas for more gripping tales that explore the emotional roller coasters of family dynamics. Join our community as we delve into the highs and lows of relationships, betrayal, and the journey to reclaiming our lives. Don't miss out on the next captivating story that might resonate with your own experiences. Leading up to the trip, I noticed subtle changes in Jake's behavior. He had become increasingly distant, often lost in thought or distracted by his phone. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that work stress was the culprit. After all, he had been putting in long hours at the office, and I wanted to be supportive. I would often remind myself of his good intentions, recalling the countless times he had been there for me. But there were moments that gnawed at my gut. One evening, while we were watching TV, Tom called. Jake's demeanor shifted instantly. He became tense, his laughter replaced by a forced smile. I could hear Tom's voice through the phone, filled with authority and expectation. "You'll be there, right? It's important for us to spend time together before the wedding." I felt a pang of unease, but I dismissed it, thinking it was just a father-son bonding moment. Then there were the odd comments from Tom. "You know, Jake, you need to prioritize family," he would say, his tone laced with an unspoken warning. I brushed it off as typical fatherly advice, but deep down, I sensed a deeper implication. It was as if he was subtly suggesting that I was a distraction, an obstacle to their relationship. As the trip approached, I tried to engage Jake in conversation about our honeymoon plans, but he seemed preoccupied. "We'll have plenty of time for that," he would say, his eyes drifting away. I felt a growing sense of isolation, as if I was losing my partner to a world I couldn't penetrate. Despite my concerns, I wanted to believe in the best of our relationship. I rationalized his behavior, convincing myself that it was just a phase. After all, we were about to embark on a new chapter together. But as the day of the trip arrived, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When Jake returned from the trip, the atmosphere in our home felt heavy, charged with unspoken words. I stood in the living room, heart racing, as he walked through the door. His eyes avoided mine, and I could sense a wall had been erected between us. The warmth that had once filled our home was replaced by an icy silence. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice trembled. "How was the trip?" He shrugged, his body language closed off. "It was fine." The word hung in the air, devoid of emotion. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't the Jake I knew. As he moved past me, I caught a glimpse of his face. His jaw was clenched and his brow furrowed. I could feel the tension radiating from him, and it sent a wave of panic through me. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my heart pounding. He turned to me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something, fear, perhaps? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "I think you should move on," he said, his voice flat. Those words struck me like a physical blow. I felt my breath hitch in my throat, and my mind raced. How could he say that? I had been preparing for our honeymoon, dreaming of our future together, and now he was suggesting I let go. In that moment, a surge of determination coursed through me. I wouldn't let him dismiss me so easily. I had evidence, proof that would reveal the truth behind their trip. As I smiled, masking my hurt with resolve, I knew I had to confront him. The truth was waiting to be uncovered, and I was ready to fight for my marriage. Betrayal can shake the foundation of even the strongest relationships. We want to hear your stories. Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's create a space for understanding and support. Your journey might resonate with someone else who's navigating similar challenges. Remember, you're not alone in this. Subscribe to Reddit Family Sagas for more captivating stories that explore the complexities of family relationships and the emotional battles we all face. Join our community and be part of the conversation as we delve into the heart of these dramatic tales. As I sat alone in our living room, the weight of Jake's words echoed in my mind. "I think you should move on." I replayed the moments leading up to his announcement, searching for clues that might explain his sudden change. The laughter we shared, the plans we made, all of it felt tainted now. I thought back to the odd comments from Tom, my father-in-law, and how they had always seemed harmless at the time. "Family comes first," he would say. But now I realized it was more than just advice. It was a directive that had seeped into Jake's psyche. I recalled the times Jake had brushed off my concerns, insisting that everything was fine. I had accepted his dismissals, convincing myself that I was overreacting. But now, those moments felt like red flags I had ignored. The way he had become increasingly secretive, the late-night phone calls he took in another room, each incident replayed in my mind like a film on repeat. Suddenly, clarity washed over me. I recognized the patterns of manipulation that had been woven into our lives. Tom's influence was more profound than I had acknowledged, and Jake had been caught in the web of his father's expectations. I felt a surge of determination rise within me. I wouldn't allow myself to be a victim of their dynamic any longer. I had to confront the truth, not just for myself, but for the future of our marriage. This realization ignited a fire within me. I was no longer confused or passive. I was ready to take action. I would gather the evidence I had uncovered and confront Jake with it. I would show him that I was not just a bystander in our relationship, but an equal partner deserving of respect and honesty. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was prepared to fight for my marriage and reclaim my voice. Feeling overwhelmed, I reached out to my best friend, Mia. She had always been my confidant, the one person I could trust to listen without judgment. We met at our favorite cafe, a cozy spot filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the sound of laughter. As I sat across from her, I felt a mix of anxiety and relief. "Mia, I don't know what to do," I confessed, my voice trembling. "Jake came back from his trip acting so distant, and then he said I should move on. It's like he's a different person." Mia's expression softened, and she leaned in closer. "Sarah, That's not okay. You deserve to know what's really going on. Have you talked to him about how you feel? I shook my head, tears welling in my eyes. I'm scared. What if he doesn't care? What if I'm just overreacting? Listen, she said firmly, you're not overreacting. Trust your instincts. You've always been the one to put others first, but now it's time to prioritize yourself. You need to confront him and find out the truth. Her words resonated deeply within me, reinforcing my resolve. Mia's unwavering support reminded me that I wasn't alone in this fight. I could lean on her as I navigated the storm ahead. With her encouragement, I felt a renewed sense of strength. I was ready to voice my concerns and demand the honesty I deserved. The atmosphere in our home was thick with tension as I prepared for the confrontation. I could feel my heart racing, each beat echoing in my ears. Jake sat on the couch, his eyes glued to the television, but I knew he was miles away. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to do. Jake, we need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. He turned to me, his expression unreadable. About your trip with your dad. He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. What about it? I don't understand why you came back acting so distant. You told me I should move on, and that hurts. What happened while you were away? I pressed, my heart pounding. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It was just a trip, Sarah. We talked about family stuff. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? I echoed, frustration bubbling to the surface. You can't just dismiss this. You're acting like everything is fine, but it's not. I can feel the distance between us. Jake's expression hardened. You're overreacting. My dad just wanted to spend time with me before the wedding. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything? I shot back, my voice rising. You think I'm overreacting? You've been secretive, and I've noticed the way your dad talks to you. It's like he's trying to control you, and you're letting him. He stood up, his frustration palpable. You don't understand. He's my father. I can't just cut him out of my life. No one is asking you to cut him out, but you need to set boundaries. I insisted, my determination solidifying. You're allowing him to dictate our relationship, and I won't stand for it. Jake's face twisted in anger. You're making this about you when it's not. I'm trying to be a good son. Being a good son shouldn't come at the expense of our marriage. I countered, my voice firm. I deserve to know the truth. I have evidence that shows there's more to this trip than you're letting on. His eyes widened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of fear. What do you mean? I've been gathering information, Jake. I won't let you manipulate me or hide behind your father's influence any longer. It's time for you to face the truth. As the confrontation escalated, the tension in the room reached a breaking point. Jake's expression shifted from anger to confusion, and I could see the internal struggle playing out in his eyes. What evidence do you have? He demanded, his voice low. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. I've seen the messages between you and your dad. The way he talks to you, it's not just fatherly advice, it's manipulation. He's been undermining our relationship for a long time. Jake's face paled, and I could see the realization dawning on him. What do you mean? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Think about it, Jake. Every time we made plans, your dad would find a way to intervene. He's always been there, pulling the strings, and you've let him. You've been conditioned to prioritize his needs over ours. He looked away, his jaw clenched. I didn't realize. I thought I was just being a good son. That's the problem, I said gently, trying to reach him. You've been so focused on pleasing him that you've lost sight of what we have. You need to confront him about this. It's not just about you anymore. It's about us. Jake's eyes filled with uncertainty. I don't know how to do that. He's always been there for me, and I don't want to hurt him. Sometimes standing up for yourself means making tough choices, I replied, my heart aching for him. Your father's influence has created a rift between us, and it's time to address it. You deserve to have your own voice, separate from his expectations. In that moment, I saw a flicker of understanding in Jake's eyes. He was beginning to grasp the depth of the situation. I need to talk to him, he finally said, his voice steadying. I need to set boundaries. With a newfound determination, Jake and I began to strategize how to address the situation with his father. We knew it wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary for the health of our marriage. I encouraged him to write down his thoughts and feelings, to articulate what he wanted to say without being overwhelmed by emotion. "Let's practice what you want to say," I suggested, sitting across from him at the kitchen table. "You need to be clear about your boundaries and how his behavior has affected us." Jake nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I want to tell him that I love him, but I can't let him dictate my life anymore. I need to prioritize my marriage." As he spoke, I felt a surge of pride. This was the man I had fallen in love with, the one who was willing to fight for our relationship. We spent hours discussing potential scenarios, preparing for the confrontation that lay ahead. The day finally arrived when Jake decided to meet with Tom. I could see the anxiety etched on his face as he left the house, but I knew he was ready. "Just remember, you're not alone in this," I reminded him, squeezing his hand for reassurance. While he was gone, I took the time to gather the evidence I had collected. Messages, notes, and instances where Tom had overstepped his boundaries. I wanted to be prepared for any fallout that might come from their conversation. When Jake returned, his expression was a mix of relief and uncertainty. "I did it," he said, his voice shaky. "I told him how I felt." "What did he say?" I asked, my heart racing. "He was angry at first, but I stood my ground. I told him I needed to prioritize my marriage and that I wouldn't let him manipulate me anymore." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "That's amazing, Jake. I'm so proud of you." The immediate aftermath of Jake's confrontation with his father was a whirlwind of emotions. Tom had reacted with anger, but Jake had stood firm, refusing to back down. As we sat together that evening, I could see the weight lifting from his shoulders. "I never realized how much I needed to say that," he admitted, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "It felt good to finally stand up for myself." But the relief was tempered by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Tom had always been a significant presence in our lives, and I knew he wouldn't take this lightly. "What do you think he'll do?" I asked, concern creeping into my voice. Jake shrugged, his expression thoughtful. "I don't know. He might try to manipulate me again, but I'm ready for it. I won't let him control our lives anymore." As the days passed, we navigated the new dynamics in our relationship. There were moments of tension, especially when Tom would call, trying to reassert his influence. But Jake was resolute, allowing the calls to go to voicemail and prioritizing our time together. I could see the emotional progress he was making, and it inspired me as well. We began to communicate more openly, discussing our feelings and fears without the shadow of Tom looming over us. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. Making tough choices in relationships can be incredibly challenging, but it's essential for our well-being. If you've ever had to set boundaries with family or friends, like this video to show your support. Your experiences matter, and sharing them can help others find their courage. Join our community at Reddit Family Sagas as we continue to explore the complexities of family dynamics and the emotional journeys we all face. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that resonate with your own experiences. Months passed, and the impact of Jake's confrontation with his father began to reshape our lives. We had established new boundaries, and while Tom still tested them, Jake was more equipped to handle the pressure. Our marriage grew stronger as we learned to communicate openly and honestly, free from the weight of external manipulation. I watched as Jake transformed into a more confident version of himself. He no longer felt the need to seek his father's approval at the expense of our relationship. Instead, he prioritized our partnership, and it brought us closer than ever. We began to plan our future together, discussing dreams and aspirations that had once felt overshadowed by Tom's influence. Reflecting on our journey, I realized how much we had both grown. The experience had taught us valuable lessons about love, loyalty, and the importance of standing up for ourselves. We learned that healthy relationships require boundaries and that it's okay to prioritize our happiness. As we celebrated our first anniversary, I felt a sense of hope for the future. Our marriage was no longer defined by external pressures. It was built on mutual respect and understanding. We had weathered the storm together, and it had only made us stronger. If this story of reclaiming your family life resonated with you, please subscribe to Reddit Family Sagas for more journeys through complicated relationships. Your experiences matter, and sharing them can inspire others to find their courage. Join our community and engage in the conversation. What boundaries have you had to set with family members? Your story might help someone else navigate their own challenges. Let's continue to explore the complexities of family dynamics together, one saga at a time. Thank you for being part of our journey.